So today I'm joined by Matt and Chrissie Nicholson. Matt and Chrissie are the founders of Olson, which is a creative consultancy using digital design and communication for good. So welcome, Matt and Chrissie.
Oh, thanks so much for having us. It's lovely to be with you.
Yeah,
Indeed.
no, great to have you. Great to have you. So tell us a bit more about Olson.
Thanks. Well, yeah, we call ourselves an accelerator for positive change. So we really like to sort of get into businesses and see where there are opportunities for them to make a more positive impact on people and planet. Really, so that could involve lots of different things from their sort of their strategy to their business model to how they then kind of implement those things or how they communicate about them as well. So it's sort of an end-to-end thing that we're just looking for opportunity to help those businesses, particularly with things where it comes to digital executions and marketing and communication, where that can often be the sort of the missing piece of the puzzle for some people.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important thing nowadays to have that as a focus within any business, isn't it? It's become more and more prevalent, and to the extent that bigger corporations will have that as part of a selection criteria. Okay, well, what are you doing to contribute to the environment, for the good, when choosing who they work with, their suppliers or people that they work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also in terms of kind of talent and the
Yeah.
up and coming talent, they're very keen to work for more purpose-led business as well. So it's becoming
Yeah.
important from that point of view too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll delve down into that in a bit more detail in a second, because you're absolutely right there, Chrissie. But so, how did you how did you start this business? How did you get into and creating Olson?
Good question. I,
Yeah, I guess it's been quite organic, but I think when our daughter was born was really kind of the moment where we kind of woke up and thought, we really need to be doing things that are more purposeful. We need to be doing things that the world really needs. And it was very focusing. I think I don't know if lots of other people who've been on this have kind of mentioned similar things, but for us, that was kind of a real kind of focuser and a kind of a turning point for us to go kind of like, right, let's be really purpose led.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'd both been working for bigger agencies at the time on slightly different things. And there was a realization that the projects we were working on with those agencies were maybe not as meaningful as they could be, but the skills that we had were transferable. And if what we were trying to do was just get audiences to know about something and choose it, you could also get audiences to know about a better option and choose that instead. So it was really just sort of a sort of a change of target, but using the same skills and thinking we could do this by ourselves. And we know the different tricks in the book from this sort of agency experience. So why not go out and just be the change,
Yeah. Okay. So you've both got a background. So would I be right in saying that you were both, before you set up your business? So you set up your business about 5 years ago, roughly, was it? Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Okay. So before you set that up, you were both employees. Were you working for marketing agencies or type of thing?
Well, that's what it was for me. But
Yeah.
Matt also had his own digital design studio.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then moved into sort of consulting as well with agencies. So it was, I suppose, always kind of marching to someone else's drum a little bit. And yeah, it felt like, I think, having had the experience of self-employment and having run a small studio before, I knew there was a way of having more sort of autonomy there and being able to be more of a kind of a creative director of, well, let's do business this way. This is the way we do business. So I'd had that experience, and then I think I'd been a bit jaded by the larger scale side of things, and those two things felt like worthwhile experience in the long run, because it allowed us to learn both the tricks and the sort of the needs of bigger businesses, but also the benefits that come with being a sort of small, nimble business that can maybe has lower overheads and can move a little bit in a more agile way.
Okay. Great. So So if I've understood that correctly, you felt that you could firstly do, you know, by setting up your own business, do things your own way, do things that mattered to you, and also that you could potentially make a bigger difference by taking control and doing what it was that you wanted to do. Have
Yeah.
I understood that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, from our kind of like origins as well, also very important that we had the flexibility for family life and to make work really work for us, and having that flexibility was really important. So that was another kind of driver for us. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that to create that business that could give you the life that you wanted as well.
Yeah, have that
Yeah.
kind of flexibility of like, oh, there's a school play at 3 o'clock. We want to both be there. Like, you know, we don't have to ask anybody or schedule it in. We can go and we can be there for our daughter as much as we want to be. So
Lovely, lovely. I love it. That's great. And on that theme, so you know, 5 years on, has it been everything you thought it would be?
Good question.
yeah, and I mean, like, sort of dreams come true kind of thing, you know, sort of like pinching ourselves. And I think the more that we've been the more good stuff that we've been doing, the more good clients that we've had have led to more of the work that we wanted to do. At first we had to kind of balance a little bit of profit and purpose and be a little bit Robin Hood, but more and more we're doing the work that we want to be doing, working with the clients that we want to be. And I think for me as well, kind of working more locally and working on local initiatives, and particularly around the kind of climate piece and sustainability, and seeing real change happening within our community, quite a conservative community here, and really kind of coming in and thinking there isn't anything kind of going on here, so let's start it, and having that canvas to kind of to work with, and starting conversations and people being very receptive, and seeing that change happen on our doorstep is hugely exciting.
It really does make a difference, doesn't it? And I can really relate to that, Chrissie, because you know, before I do what I do now, I was a consultant and an advisor up in London, and you know, consulting and advising large corporate businesses, international businesses. But I didn't feel that same connection. And now I coach more local businesses in sort of East Sussex and Kent. As you say, seeing the change on your doorstep to those local businesses and the knock-on impact that has, that's a great feeling to have, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's so meaningful, and I can relate to that sort of London, the London bubble as well. And you sometimes feel a little bit kind of interchangeable, that they're just looking for a supplier or something. But then when you move to a sort of a local way of working, it becomes much more about the interpersonal relationship and the soft skills, and the still getting the job done, but making that an enjoyable experience too. And it's not just about, we need this sort of laundry list of things done, and then we'll just go to the cheapest person. But finding someone who really cares, and you're on the same page, and as you say, you can see the change when it's implemented, and you might bump into them in the street and you have a little chat about how it's going, and it just feels much more meaningful and interconnected to the community, the kind of broader community.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So let's go on along that sort of line. So I was going to ask, what makes you different? Okay. So I guess one of the things is there that you're local. You like working with local businesses, but why? What else makes you different to other people in your industry?
That's a good question. I think I feel like one of the things we try to do is really simplify things, because I think sustainability and digital things, technology, all those things which we're really into, we want to introduce those to businesses because we believe they can make a difference. But they can often be very sort of opaque. They can be hard to understand. So I think one of the things we try to do is just create very straightforward solutions that are they're easy to get your head around. They make sense. We're looking for what's going to make the most impact with the least amount of effort, and where can we start? And let's just be sensible about some of these things. And I think that's really played in our favor, really, that's people have responded well to the fact that we're just trying to make things simple and sensible. And I think one of the things we've seen in our background is that solutions can get very complicated, and they're there's loads of jargon and it feels expensive and it feels difficult, and there are all these barriers to kind of actually getting stuff done. So I think just making things simpler, making them easier, and just sort of sensible solutions is one of the things that we try to bake into everything that we do. It's just making it fun. Like, we love workshopping. We love getting around a table and putting post-it notes down and going, what could we do? And trying to be really creative and sort of upbeat about things, and being nice to work with. I think those are just all, we're trying to make it an enjoyable experience, really.
And being collaborative and agile in that, and really thinking about what's best for the client. And if we know that we can do some small things to enable a client to run and do something, then we'll do that, because if that works better for their budget, you know, and that's a better agile solution, then that's the way that we want people to go. That it's not about our own agenda necessarily. It's always about what's best for the client, and collaboration being really key, and really prioritizing those relationships and what's important for those people in their businesses.
Yeah, that's some really good points there. I like that. So, and actually, again, it shares a lot of the philosophies that I have as well. Keeping things simple. Yeah, look, just so important in business. Having some fun. Yeah. You know, we spend a lot of time in businesses and working. You know,
Right.
Isn't it so much better if we can do it and have some fun at the same time?
Right, and be nice people, be the people that people want to work with. I think that's actually how we've got quite a lot of our work. Is just being nice to work with. People enjoy it. We make it fun, we make it personable, and people just like the relationship that they have with us, and then they're more likely to recommend us, and it means that work's so much more joyful to do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. And then the other point that you mentioned there, Chrissie, as well, which is doing what's right for the client. You know, so it's not having your own agenda, but just doing what's right for the client. So yeah, I like all of those things that you mentioned. So what's the benefits to the client of working with a business like you? What's the benefits to the other businesses or your clients?
I think the way that we work, I think there are sort of three pillars to what we do. One of those is just about kind of inspiration, which could be to more than just businesses. Like, we put on these events and things to try and get people to know a bit more about sustainability and what's happening locally, and to just be excited by that. And some of the people coming to those will be businesses, and then we could potentially start a conversation with them. And then it just becomes about guiding potentially, and looking to sort of workshop with them all of the opportunities, and just being really open about where could this go, and they're really we're facilitating their thought process, really. So a lot of the time they see things that they've put down on the paper, but they didn't realize that the solution was in them all along. It's a kind of a sort of a visual therapy session to kind of go, where do you want to go? And it's all come from them, but we've just facilitated the space for that to happen.
And also the space for reflection, because sometimes they come in with thinking that they need a new website, for example, and actually that's not quite what they need, or their budget could be spent elsewhere, and kind of collaborating and workshopping around that to tease those out together is really, really valuable. Yeah,
so those assumptions of like, I know I need a new website. We'll go, well, let's just map that out first, and let's look at a whole user journey of how does a customer become how do you create value for someone, and where do they start? Where does that journey start for them, and what processes does it go through for the business? And then let's look at that whole map and actually consider, where do you think the biggest kind of barrier is? Like, where's the biggest bottleneck here? And it might be something internal, operational. It might be a communications piece. It might actually be everything works really well from operations to execution, and we can kind of get a customer to the value, and they recommend us, and that's great, but nobody knows about us. So actually it's okay, well, let's focus on findability. Let's focus on, how do people start a journey and discover you? So we love to just map out the whole thing. So I think that clarity is not something that you always get with creative agencies. I've worked in a lot of creative agencies where the role of the agency appears to be, we're just going to present to you our idea of a solution, rather than let's just work together side by side to help you choose where to put the focus, and that's all come from you, and we're just here to facilitate that. So I think that kind of clarity and transparency is something you don't always get with a creative consultancy.
Yeah.
And then the final piece is the kind of the activation of it, that if they go, actually, we do want to fix this piece of the puzzle, a lot of the time a creative studio will go, well, actually, we can't help you do that, but we'll just send you somewhere else. Whereas we actually have quite a unique skill set between the two of us, that we can mobilize those things. I've got sort of a lot of the digital expertise to implement technology and websites and platforms and those kinds of things. Chrissie's got a lot of strategic and comms backgrounds and events backgrounds, so can actually make stuff happen, which is kind of a rare combination, that you can plan it and execute it, and you kind of, from the get-go that you're going to be able to pull it off. Sometimes that means bringing new, people into the team to help if you've got specialisms that you need help with. But we can still produce the whole piece, or someone's just happy with that kind of workshopping piece, and they go, thanks very much, we'll take it from here. So yeah, I feel like that sets us apart. Certainly the workshopping and the transparency is something that you don't always get, and we always get a good response from that, because you get levels of alignment within teams that they've never had before.
Yeah. And the thing that springs to mind when you say that is the definition that I quite like of sales. Because, well, firstly, if you're in business, you're in sales. Yeah. That's that. That's a fact. If you're in business, you're in sales. But sales is sometimes viewed as a dirty word.
Right.
Yeah.
And but actually, the definition I like of sales, which I think you described there, Matt, is professionally helping people to buy.
Mm.
And I think if we all keep that in mind, of not selling to people, but professionally helping them to buy, and that process you just described there, Matt, I think neatly sort of explains that in the way that you professionally help people to buy. You don't sell to them; you professionally help them to buy. So yeah, so I like what you've sort of said there. Now, so look, you've been in business for, as we said, about 5 years. So what would you say are some of the common misconceptions about running a business, and how do you address them?
That's a good question.
I wonder if there might be some misconceptions about a husband and wife team.
Yes.
I don't know, but that could be a real challenge. That could create a lot of arguments and difficulty.
Yes.
And while we've had to be kind of very boundaried in our kind of lives and communication, actually the same sort of skills that we bring to teamwork to kind of parenting and presenting a united front, we have to do in business as well. And we are a great team. But yeah, boundaries are required.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's true. I think also the post pandemic has it's changed people's approach to remote working and things like that, where maybe there was a sense that if you were going to start a business before the pandemic, you needed bricks and mortar offices to have credibility, and perhaps you needed staff to have credibility and those kinds of things. Where I feel like now it's easier to still deliver a great service, in fact, a better service, really, because you're able to kind of give more value without the overheads of an office or teams necessarily, and be able to assemble what you need, a hot desking space or a meeting room to run a workshop as and when you need it, and be a little bit more ad hoc. So I think that's something that's maybe changed. I don't know whether that's still a misconception of business, but I think now that we can do things remotely, I think that has it sort of leveled the playing field in a way that maybe it might have been harder pre-pandemic to kind of offer the same level of credibility without the offices and the staff.
Yeah, no, I think that is, as you say, that's something that's substantially sort of changed, isn't it? And I think, mindset is changing with that. Whether it's all the way there or not, I don't know. But yeah, I agree that it is something that's substantially changed. And by the way, my wife is my business partner as well. So yeah, look, I can understand the misconceptions there. And you mentioned there, Chrissie, about boundaries, etc. And I think that's important within any business, but also with, you set the rules of the game. And one of the interesting rules that that my wife and I set when we started our business was that we said that we can only talk about business when we're in the office.
Mm.
If we start talking about business anywhere else, like in the, if we were in our kitchen or anything, we have to go into our home office.
Okay.
Interesting.
So one of two things happens. Majority of the time, we stop talking about business. We just go,
Yeah.
we can't be bothered to walk into the home office, so we'll just stop talking about business. But that was one of the rules that we set ourselves. Right? We can't talk about business outside of our office or our home office.
Yeah, and I think for us, it's maybe like having a comedy or a light-hearted way of doing that, or like a code word or something, which is like, oh, we've got into work chat. Like let's rewind.
Yeah,
exactly. You've got to have that split. So actually, on that, how do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business? Because also you said you've got a daughter as well.
Yes, we've got a 6-year-old daughter. She's very good at helping us to be boundaried. We've got to do the school pickup. She needs her dinner. She provides a lot of brilliant structure to kind of help us to keep the boundaries. And with her around, we don't want to be working anymore. We want to down tool, and that also means that our days are quite short, and we have to be very, very productive. So it means that our days are really, really focused.
Yeah, I think it can also be what we find is that boundary can be blurry in a good way as well, because we're both genuinely passionate about sustainability and purpose-led ideas. And so if we see something out and about that's a cool idea, like maybe it's a cup return scheme or a circular design thing, or we've seen something online where we're like, look at this great idea of a great recycling solution or something, we will genuinely share it and be excited about it and talk about it. And it sort of nicely crosses over into stuff that we just enjoy and are inspired by, and then thinking, oh, it'll be great to talk about that in our Monday planning meet. So we'll have a Monday and Friday where we really kind of focus in on things for the week, but we'll share things with each other in between, or the books we're reading. Oh, this is a great idea. So yeah, there's some healthy blurring of the boundaries too, I think, which is a good sign that what we're working on is something that we're truly passionate about as well.
Yeah, which links to that point that you sort of said earlier about fun as well, isn't it? If your business is something that you enjoy and something you're passionate about, then generally you're so much better at it as well, because normally with the things that we're good at are the things that we enjoy.
Yeah.
So if you really enjoy it and you're passionate about it, I think it makes it you're better at it as well. So and it sounds as though from what you said there, you mentioned a few things, Chrissie. You mentioned about having very sort of structured days, because they have to be for school pickup and that sort of thing. And Matt, you mentioned there about having Monday morning meetings and planning days. It sounds to me though as though you've got this sort of framework to make it work. That you've sort of said, right, well, this is what our week is going to be like. We have to keep this structure to it. And therefore you work around that. Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah, and we've got a family planner as well. We like to very much share our kind of parenting roles too, so we know, there's no ambiguity about who's doing the pickup or drop off. There's no kind of negotiation. It's partly for the sort of efficiency.
Yeah.
And those kind of structured meetings of what's happening in the week, and an awareness of exactly what's going on in the business and what we need to be planning for. So we'll have a planning meeting on a Monday and a Friday, and the Friday one is actually really critical because it helps us we'll have it on a Friday morning to look ahead to the week, and it means we've got that Friday as a kind of run up to the rest of the week. We'll be setting ourselves up for success with that Friday planning meeting. So those meetings are really critical.
So on the Friday, you're sort of planning the next week. You're saying, right, okay, planning our week ahead. Great, I love that. And look, it's one of the things that I recommend to all my clients to do is to have a weekly plan, and then plan the next day, the night before. But it's amazing how many businesses and people don't actually do that. I always joke with people and say that most business owners spend more time planning their summer holiday than they do planning their business. It's but it creates so much more efficiency and productivity. So it's great to hear that you do that, and it sounds as though that really works for you as well. So
Yeah.
so what's been one of the biggest learnings since you've been in business?
Good question.
That's a good one. Yeah, I think
there are so many, aren't there?
There are. I feel like it sort of mostly comes down to people. I think mostly that either the people you're working with, the culture, the collaboration, the enthusiasm in the people that you're working with is crucial. Often more important than actually the skill set to get it done within reason. You need people that you're really happy to work with. So I think that side of things really, and then on the sort of actually sort of winning work or sort of growing the business, people again within your network, that just there's a saying that your network is your net worth, and it feels like that's the shortcut to getting new business in, is to be connected, to do good work, and to be nice to work with. But I think so much of it is interpersonal at some level, and the times where things have really worked, it's when it's been a great team and when you've done a really good job, and then that has just paid dividends in the future, because then it creates word of mouth, and then more comes in that way, and so that network effect of people is so powerful.
Yeah, and the kind of quality of work. I think one of the frustrations sometimes in working with agents, in an agency, would be, we've run out of budget, let's just get this project done now. And and actually, when you really care about a client relationship and wanting to do what's best for a business, you want to be able to just work on it until it's done, and really get the very best output, and focusing on quality, and that being really important. And I think that's been so liberating for us, just going like, let's just get the best work. It doesn't matter that budget has been burnt. So like we really believe in this, and it needs to be the best it can be. Yeah,
totally. I think sometimes just over delivering, or just keeping going until it's the best it can be, and sort of forget the budget, because that ultimately won't matter. What people will remember is the output. In a year or two, then that no one's going to remember what they spent on it. They're going to remember what the lasting effect was. So yeah, I think when you're in bigger teams and you've got lots of people whose job it is to make sure you're staying on budget, that can create tension, because if the philosophy of part of the team is, we just need to make this the best it can be, and the other half are going, no, we need to stay on budget, that can cause resentment just within the same team, and then you're not sure what you should tell the client, and everyone's at cross purposes. So again, that was one of those frustrations that made us think, if we can control this as our own business, we'll be able to just run things the way that they need to be run.
Yeah. So I picked up two words there, people and quality. Working with the right people, and it was interesting to hear you sort of say the culture as well. I think it's really important for every business to understand what their culture is and what their values are, to help them then decide with who do they want to work with. Because if you work with people that share the similar sort of culture and values, then again, it goes back to that word that we used earlier. It's much more enjoyable and fun to work with them, but there isn't so much friction and tension, because you share the same culture and values. And making sure that you deliver that quality, the expectations that your clients want. Again, really, really important. So, okay, great learnings there. So, look, there's one question that I like to ask all my guests on when I speak to them is, what's the best advice you would give an 18-year-old you? Who's going to go? I'll ask both of you. Who wants to go?
Okay, should I? Oh,
go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that. I would say make the teas. And what I mean by that is, you know, there's something really valuable about you know, seeing, like, making the tea, like in an office environment, or, you know, wherever you are, as being a networking opportunity and a way to build rapport and put yourself in front of people, and show that you're willing to kind of get stuck in. And I also think that that doesn't just apply to 18-year-olds, but it also applies to CEOs. Because some of the best businesses I've worked in, the CEO will always make a round of tea. And I think that's really important. And again, that speaks to that relationships and that being so kind of critical. They're really key, because during those kind of moments of doing the rounds in the room, people go, oh, I need to talk to you about something, or, you know, you're making yourself available. So I think make the teas.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Very good. And what about you, Matt?
I think 18-year-old me, I actually think 18-year-old me did okay, because 18-year-old me followed his passions and was more interested in pursuing passions and creative passions than maybe what he was supposed to be doing. But it paid off in the long run, I think. I think I was really into music. I was really into programming. I would just do those things for fun. And by the time I got to uni, music became all I was interested in. I wasn't studying music, but I ended up forming a band. We would tour. So we ended up learning about networking, about building audiences, about marketing, about communicating. And I think I learned more in trying to, because a band is a little business, really. You're trying to sell tickets, you're trying to sell merchandise, you're trying to sell your CDs back then.
Yeah.
And learned more about business, I think, in trying to create a functioning band than I would have done any other way. And so I think just being driven by my passions rather than sort of dogmatic about study necessarily, because I think a lot of the sort of technical skills you can learn later, but those interpersonal skills, the kind of the creative, the risk taking, the nous, that was all stuff that was much easier to do on the ground, driven by something you were really, really passionate about.
Yeah, again, great advice. So follow your passion is what I sort of picked up there. But actually, the way you both described what it is that you both said in yours of how you explained making the tea, what you meant by making the tea, Chris, and Matt, what you meant by follow your passion, are actually interlinked, or they're interlinked in my head, which is actually have a great attitude.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, it's the difference between attitude and aptitude. Yeah, okay, you need sort of certain skills to do certain jobs, but actually the attitude, your approach, is really, really important. That's what sort of sprung to mind when you were both talking there, is actually having that right attitude to make the tea, to get to know people, to speak to people, having the right attitude to follow your passion, but actually to use that to learn things. And you know, I really like those two. And by the way, I'm particularly keen in asking that question at the moment because I have an 18-year-old daughter. So I will be passing those pieces of advice on. Whether she'll listen to me or not, I don't know. Yeah, never coach your own family is what I say. But yeah. Matt, Chrissie, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and sharing more about your business and also your journey. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It's
Thanks,
been a
Simon.
real delight. This has been great. Thank you.
It's been wonderful.
Thanks very much.